Alright, story time while I walk the dog. I'm telling the story today of my first programming job. On my resume, I guess. I don't have any college degree. I had a significant amount of college. I did 8 semesters at Georgia Tech, and dropping out is another story. So when I dropped out of school, I taught myself programming. My husband was a programmer, and I was just kind of asking him, okay, how do I know if this could be a career for me? You look like you're having so much fun. You have an awesome job. I want to try this. I had a baby. Kept kind of blogging about things I was learning about Python. Python was the only thing I was learning because he was very much like, oh, all you need is Python. You could be a backend developer. Our startup was in Startup Chile, an incubator, so we lived in Santiago for 8 months, and 6 of those months I learned Selenium WebDriver, so I was coding Python to automate the browser. Our startup probably didn't actually need that at that time, but it was still a really good experience for me to learn Python. And so then I did an internship with Gnome Outreach Program for Women. I interned with the Fedora infrastructure team, and I didn't really fully understand what I was doing. I just kind of looked at what code base already existed, and Stack Overflow, and discussing things with my husband, discussing things with my mentor. I had a mentor that is at Red Hat. So I still didn't really understand what I didn't really understand databases. We had another baby, and I really wanted to. I thought I wanted to be a QA automation engineer. So I interviewed for a few places. I would pretty much I always got an on-site. I would apply to places, they'd call me right away. I actually wanted a really low salary. I was only asking for 65 because I was just looking for a way to basically pay for daycare only. Actually, with a kid under 2 and one kid over 2, it was about $3,400 a month. But my husband was also working, and so I just thought, if I offer myself crazy cheap, then someone will be willing to take a chance on me. But I really didn't really have much experience other than I could code Python. And QA and automation engineers aren't really super high priority for most companies. Maybe I should have tried harder. I only applied to 3 companies, so and didn't get any offers. Although I did get a bunch of callbacks, kind of multiple stage interviews. I found out about App Academy, and I just love the idea that I didn't have to pay $17,000 or $19,000 up front. But I did also apply to I applied to a few other boot camps. So I applied to Hackbright. I think they go through so many people. I think I just kind of got lost in the shuffle because I didn't even get my rejection note until I had emailed them 3 weeks after my on-site interview, which they had told me that they would let me know within 2 days. And then I also started the application process for Rocket U and was accepted, but at the time they'd only had 1 cohort and none of them had jobs yet, and I just didn't think I could really take that risk, having a family, having to pay for daycare, knowing that I really need to be in a job quickly, because I couldn't afford to continue paying for daycare without me having an income. We had money in savings from my husband's income, and so we were just going to burn through that for me to do a boot camp. I started applying to Hack Reactor, and I was scheduled for an on-site, and then I realized that they meet on Saturdays too, and I knew that I just couldn't afford that, to pay daycare and pay someone to watch my kids all day on Saturday. Like, yeah, my husband was home, but I knew even just going to a boot camp 5 days a week was already going to be a tremendous strain on our family, and I really felt like that was just too selfish. Whereas I really liked with the App Academy that you pay a percentage of your salary. So most of what you do pay a deposit, but most of what you pay, come on, Bruce. Most of what you pay is once you have a job, and it's based on how well you do. And so, like, to me, that meant that, like, they believe in their students. They are personally invested in their students, and just that, like, it was more financially manageable. And then I also found out that, like, a third of their students, I don't know if they still allow this, but a third of their students were living there. And so it's nothing glamorous. It's not like a hotel or even like a hostel even. It's just like a huge room with like camping cots and like a suitcase underneath your camping cot. But that really like meant to me that like that really spoke to me about kind of the culture of App Academy, and I thought that would be a better fit than a boot camp where people pay like $17,000 or $19,000 like a month before they even start learning. And so I went through boot camp. Their stack was completely different than what I'm actually doing in my job. So at the time it was Ruby, Rails, SQL, JavaScript, jQuery, Bootstrap, Backbone. Whereas now they've replaced Backbone with Flux and React. To interview for jobs together, and like we had this board of rejections, and so the idea is that like the people with the most rejections sooner are the ones that get the job sooner, because it just means that you're really like putting yourself out there, you're really going for it, and like you can't succeed if you don't try. And so I did submit my resume for about 100 positions, but I really suspect my resume wasn't really even looked at, except for maybe by about 10 of those companies. A lot of software companies will say that they're hiring, but really they're just looking for, maybe they have a bot that searches for certain keywords, or they are only looking for people with like 10 years experience, people like my husband. So like I only had maybe 4 phone screenings. Actually, maybe it was more than 4. Maybe it was like 6 or 7. And I did get invited to 3 on-sites. And so 6 weeks was like from, oh, my solo project is done, I can submit my resume to yes, I'll work for you. That whole process took me about 6 weeks, and it was a crazy 6 weeks. Like, I mean, there were times where I was jumping up and down excited, and there are other times where I was just bawling my eyes out thinking nobody wanted me, because the software industry, like, there's such huge diversity in what people want, what software, like what technology stacks they use. Sometimes those job listings are just really kind of generic, or just not completely transparent, and you don't actually know if you're what they're looking for. Maybe when you don't actually even get a phone screening, it's not really that they think you suck. It's just that you probably aren't what they're looking for. But yeah, it was just a really, really crazy journey. Like, I thought that going to a boot camp would mean that, like, I would just go to this, like, fancy dinner afterwards, and I'd get tons of interviews right there, and, like, 3 people would offer me jobs, and then I don't know, I just thought it would be easy, and it was actually really hard. So the company that I'm working for now, they had actually emailed me like the day before they made me the offer, saying like, oh, you're one of our favorites, like, so that we can, if we decide to make the offer tomorrow, what are your salary expectations so we can wrap this up quickly, or something like that. And like I realized it was totally like a ploy to get me to say my number first. But at the same time, like I was just so frustrated with the job hunt that I feel like I needed to give an answer. So I did give an answer that I didn't think I deserved, but I kind of cushioned it with, so I gave him a number and said, depending on other benefits. So at the time, they didn't actually have other benefits. They didn't have health insurance. They didn't have 401k. So they actually offered me like $11,000 more than I asked for. And so I was just like scared. I was terrified for like an entire night because like I actually canceled 2 of my on-site interviews after I got the offer from this company, just because their software, like their stack, the technologies that they were using were such a good fit for what I wanted to do, whereas the other companies were using things that I didn't really want to use, and like they may have actually, those other 2 companies may have actually paid better, but I really wanted to work with Python, and I wanted like a full stack role where I could really work on like all of the software. Accepted the offer, started like 2 weeks later, and then I find out like after I've been working there a while that it actually took them 6 weeks to find me. Like they had a really hard time with finding applicants, so it's just crazy that like I was having a hard time, they were having a hard time, and like I'm actually not even sure how confident they were in their decision to hire me, honestly. They probably thought that they were somewhat taking a risk, but like they didn't really have much of a choice because they really need the position filled. Like they haven't admitted that part to me, but I do know that like my first month there, like the CTO that works in the same office with me, he seemed like he was impressed. Like he was surprised that I was able to like just get on board so quickly, like merge some tickets onto master, refactor some code, like have fresh eyes, like ask them like, oh, why'd you do it this way? It was really awesome that they like took a risk on me, got me like a MacBook Pro with retina display, and now we actually do have a 401k and health insurance, and I still get my high salary. So yeah, I guess it worked out well for me. But yeah, I really like my job and like being a software developer, and I think going to boot camp was the best investment I've ever made in myself.